Here's 7 delay tricks I like to use. The first 2 I'm going to show you rely on you being in sync with the tempo. So I have this tempo set at 89 for this example. I'm using an example that my friend Nathan Hood came up with on guitar several years ago, and he used this pattern. The notes are a dotted eighth note apart. So every note is 3/16 notes apart. When you get to the last note of the sequence, it just happens to fall on the last eighth note of the thing. So there's only an eighth note between the last beat and the first beat. So here's what it sounds like with no delay. So that's it with no delay. Here it is with Ableton's delay audio effect, and I have it to where it is repeating at quarter notes. So the rhythmic effect that you get is what I like about this. I'll just play it to start with. So you'll notice the rhythmic effect that you get, and also because of the overlap between the dotted eighth notes that are being played and the quarter notes that are being repeated, you get some zigzaggy repeats, which make for more complex melodies than you might otherwise think of using. And sometimes you can kind of go along with the delay and end up creating melodies with the delay as kind of a collaboration. It's kind of neat. So that is playing dotted eighth notes and having the delay repeat quarter notes. Let's reverse that and let's play a variation of that melody, but this time we're going to play eighth notes and have the delay play dotted eighth notes for us. So here's the sequence with no delay. Now here it is with dotted eighth note, so 3/16 notes basically. I think U2 guitar player Edge made this sound kind of popular, that kind of galloping rhythm that you get with this, where you're playing eighth notes, the delay is repeating dotted eighth notes, and you get that kind of rhythm with it. And the same thing here, you can get kind of complex rhythms when you ascend and then you descend, and you get like, you know, by the time you get to this note's being played, you know, it's kind of neat. So again, these two are dependent upon you being synced with a metronome. Now, the third one that I'll show you here is, I'm just going to use the same sequence as the first one, but I'm going to show you how to make a modulated sound in Ableton or really any DAW. When I was experimenting with delay pedals with guitar, a lot of delay pedals have a preset or setting where the delay signal is modulated, and it's usually adding a chorus effect to the delayed signal. So that's what I've done here. I put a delay and a chorus on my first chain in my audio effect rack, and I have 2 chains. One is just a dry signal and one is a delay signal. You could have easily just done this by setting up a return track and setting up these 2 things on the return track, and then you wouldn't have had to mess with 2 separate chains, but this seems to be the way a lot of people do kind of wet-dry mixes in Ableton. So you'll notice I have the delayed signal, you know, like 7 dB lower than the dry, and the delay is the same as the first trick I showed you. It's a quarter note delay with dotted eighth notes being played, which doesn't matter in this, but the effect that I'm trying to show you is this chorus added to only the delayed signal. The dry signal doesn't have any modulation on it, and it's a very mild amount of chorus. I usually start about 2.5 milliseconds, and yeah, let's try that, see what it sounds like. So if you can hear, the delayed signal has this chorus sound. I'll turn it on and off. Here we go. And you can mess with the amount of modulation you put on there. Let's just mess with it a little bit and mess with the wet dry as we get it wackier and wackier. Yeah, so you see how you can kind of experiment with that a little bit. I personally enjoy using a modulated delay in many cases, so that's kind of how you can set it up in a DAW. The next one, I messed around with this for a little while. I'm not super happy with how it turned out in this particular setup. I have my routing set up to be kind of a recursive send, where I'm sending to send B, and then send B has a delay and a pitch shifter, and then send B is also sending to send B, which is at not 100%. So every time it sends to itself, it's less than 100, which will gradually reduce the signal until there's not any signal being regenerated. So usually a shimmer kind of lasts longer, and this is like usually this is found in kind of reverb units, but you kind of get like when you use it with delay and you're using it with octaves on the pitch shifter, you really only get like 1 or 2 repeats before it's out of your hearing range. There isn't actually a pitch shifter plugin included with Ableton Live Suite, so I found this free pitch shifter, which is actually really great. It is reminiscent of Digitech's Whammy or Boss's harmonizer pedal. So you tell it what key you're in. I'm in B minor. I'm just telling it in this case to shift it up an octave. Ableton is great at pitch shifting and warping audio whenever you have the audio already recorded in a clip. It does have a frequency shifter plugin, but not one that can calculate an octave above on the fly dynamically. So that's why I chose Pitch Proof. You can just Google that and download that. It's for VST and AU. So I have the wet to 100% and no detune or anything. And then I just have the delay being pitch shifted up an octave, and then the output of this channel comes back in to send to B at less than 100%, and then it just repeats until you can't hear it anymore. One thing that I discovered that you have to do is see how this reverb send channel, these are grayed out, the sends are grayed out. So you have to right click and then say enable send, and then it will actually send audio. And I also have the delayed signal here being sent to the reverb, so it sounds a little wet. All right, let's see what this one sounds like. Shimmer. Yeah, so you just kind of get like a plunky kind of effect on that, and you can mess with the feedback, and you can mess with the delay time, and also how much you send. So if you send this too high, you'll end up with like a massive feedback loop, and it'll like damage your speakers if you're not careful, or your ears. I'll mess with it just a little bit so you can see kind of variation you can get. So that's kind of the gist of the Shimmer one. Just an idea of something you can mess with if you're looking for that kind of effect. This one is really something that I discovered on the Boss DD7. I was reading through the manual and experimenting with some of the stereo effects that it has. And depending on which cables you have plugged into the output, whether you just have a mono on the left or you have a left and a right cable on the output, I think if it's something like if you only have the right cable plugged in, you get this effect. I'd have to check the manual, but you can get the same effect here by using Ableton's delay audio effect and turn on the ping pong mode, which what that does is every time a delay is generated, it distributes it basically round robin style to the left, then the right, then the left, then the right channel. So here is what it would sound like in true stereo ping pong mode. Which is exactly like the first trick, except it's just spread across the stereo spectrum now. Where this trick comes in is the effect that I'm talking about is this rhythmic effect when you only use either the left or the right after they've been split apart, and you're only getting half of the delays. So you get this interesting rhythmic effect, and I'll show you here. So after the delay, I have a utility plugin, and I just use the mono preset. But so you engage the mono feature here, and then you tell it which channel you want to hear. So I'll start with the left. Kind of cool, right? So it's like, you have kind of some rests built in to that, and the right is different. It'd be the opposite of the left with whatever notes you would be getting. Here's what it sounds like. Yeah. So that's kind of the gist of that one. You can kind of get some fresh rhythmic features with that trick there. So the next one I kind of learned with reading the manual for the Moger Foger MF104, and I was messing with it, and the first example they give you is how to make a chorus effect with a delay, and I was like, what? How does that even work? So in the process, I kind of learned about chorus and how it works. So let's look at this. I have it set up here where I don't have it synced. I just have it set to millisecond time, and I have it set to about like a 2.5 millisecond delay, and I have 0 feedback, and I have the dry wet at half. So what you get is kind of a chorus effect if you engage the modulation section here. So basically what's happening is I have 100% modulation effect going, and I have the rate at about 700 0.7 hertz. And so here's kind of what it sounds like. And here's without it, and with it. So yeah, you can mess with the rate of the modulation. It would basically be like the rate on your chorus pedal, and then your millisecond would be kind of another aspect that you could change with that. But anyway, that's basically what chorus is just you split the signal, you copy the input to another duplicate channel, and then you modulate it, the pitch of it up and down over time. So that's kind of a neat little trick you can use a delay for. And then the last thing I'll show you is some crazy modulation that you can get with a delay pedal. You can get way more wild with this when you have a true analog delay pedal, and changing the time while there is signal in the buffer really warps the pitch of what's in the buffer. So what I have here is a delay, and I have it doesn't really matter where I have this because I'm going to be modulating this with an LFO. And the LFO is it's in PAX, Core Library, Devices, Audio Effects, Max Audio Effect, LFO. So drag that. It can really be anywhere. It doesn't have to be before or after, because there's the signal. It doesn't modify the signal going into it or out. It's just kind of a modulator. In Logic, this is actually there's an LFO MIDI effect. So you would have to have it on a MIDI channel. So what you do, it starts off with like this, where it says map. So you click map, you turn it on first. You say map, and then you just click one of the times. And I have mine on triangle, and I have the depth set to about 70% and the rate pretty slow. So now you could get it even slower if you wanted. Maybe like 0.08. Let's try that. Yeah, so you can hear as the signal accumulates in the buffer and the delay time changes, it's warping it, and it gets a really cool effect. You can mess with this manually if you want. I'll turn that off so it's not being modulated anymore. And let me play the signal. I'll just mess with it manually, and also you can mess with the feedback here. So I'm letting some signal build up here with a fast delay time, and then I'll turn it much slower. And the feedback is all the way up as high as Ableton will let you go. And then go much lower. And then it's going to take a really long time for all of that audio that was in the buffer to stop. So if I stop this is literally what was just in the buffer being output. I just realized I have this pan, sorry. So this is the feedback regenerating, and that's why it's lasting so long. If you get it too much, you can always back off the feedback. Now, if you want to make whatever's in the buffer finish faster, you can just reduce the time. And with being at such a high feedback, it takes it a while, even at a fast one, to output and flush out the buffer there. So there you go. You can get some kind of crazy fun, just like audio design, sound design things with a delay pedal with modulating it there. So that's kind of what I want to show you. There's my 7 delay tricks.